Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. Please be seated. And I now call the honorable member, Mr. Ganesh Mahipal, to make his presentation. Did I say Mahesh or Ganesh?
Yes, Ganesh is the remover of obstacles. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must begin my presentation by addressing a concern that has presented itself from all three speakers on the government side. And that is, they kept mentioning about this 5 months impasse and kept saying that they're trying to reduce such a reoccurrence. Sir, may I remind this House and the viewing public that we as a country moved to a recount process on an agreement between then President Granger and then leader of the opposition, Bharat Jagdeo. And it is that agreement, sir, that contributed to the 5 months period that the members on the government side speak of. So if we want to accept an impasse of 5 months, the government must equally claim responsibility. Sir, I wish to also clarify that it is because of that recount process we were able as a nation for the first time to examine the ballot boxes before the declaration of a result. And it is in those examinations, sir, we saw the need to ensure that we have credible elections in Guyana. The credibility, as the APNU AFC has continuously said, is dependent on a credible voters list. The APNU AFC has always maintained, even when they were in government, that we need a credible voters list. The APNU AFC in government began the process to give this country a clean voters list. It was not stopped by us. It was stopped by a court action coming from the People's Progressive Party. And even so, what we have maintained after that court process is that we are prepared to come to this National Assembly to ensure that measures are put in place to get a clean voters list. Because credible elections begin with a credible voters list. And no amendment that was brought to this House to Roper, nor the other act seeks to give us the movement towards a credible voters list. And that is what is important in all of this. Mr. Speaker, why there is need for a credible voters list is because of the findings in that recount exercise. And I will make reference, sir, because of the time constraints understandably imposed on me, I will make reference to one finding that came out of the Guyana Elections Commission observation report, taken from ballot box number 6346 at the polling station Cariveton Primary School in the polling division 641325E, where the findings revealed that of the 21 oaths of identity, only 11 was recorded in the poll book. 10 were not listed on the official list of electors. What that tells us, sir, is that there were 10 votes in this ballot box that was not listed on the official list of electors for that polling station. And there are several findings similar to this that has caused us to understand and agree that there is need for a clean voters list. Mr. Speaker, further to that is the observations that were made by the various observers for elections 2020 and the need for us to have a clean voters list. That was uttered by the Organization of American States. It was uttered by several other elections observers that all of us are well knowledgeable about. So when we come to the National Assembly and we portray ourselves as wanting to have credible elections in this country, it must first begin with a credible list. If the foundation is bad, Comrade Speaker, the building will crumble. And we have no faith, given this bloated list that is before us, that these elections will be credible and fair. And that is what is unfortunate in our beautiful Guyana, sir. Comrade Speaker, further I want to answer the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. When the submission, sir, was made on all the findings reference to electoral reform, when the findings were made, sir, the Honorable Attorney General said that he will like us to provide the voter fraud evidence. May I remind this Honorable House, and may I remind the viewing public, that the evidence was submitted to the Guyana Elections Commission, and the chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission submitted those names that were presented to the General Registrar's Office and to the Chief Immigrations Officer. And a response came showing that several persons who were listed on the official list of electors and marked off or ticked off as voted were not in the jurisdiction on or before March 2nd, 2020. It is either they were it is either they were out of the jurisdiction or they were simply dead. And all of those evidence, Comrade Speaker, the learned Attorney General requested it in 2022. Sir, I have a picture here taken from Chronicle, dated August 31st, 2022, where our learned Attorney General sitting doing his issues in the news program, and he said that he wants the evidence. They were given to him since 2022. The evidence were given to him. Here is Stabrook News, September 7th, 2022. The evidence were given to him. The Lord Attorney General promised this nation to say whether those evidence have value and whether they are credible. To date, he has not pronounced on it. Is it because the findings of him doesn't suit him, and that is why he's not telling us? It wasn't the APNU, AFC, sir, that validated those findings. It was the General Registrar's Office, and it was the Chief Immigrations Officer. And those are the evidence that solidified the position that elections 2020 was marred with fraud. And in fixing that fraud, we called for a clean voters list. Mr. Speaker, from 2015 to this day that I am standing before you, both sides, the government side and the opposition side. In 2015, as a matter of fact, the government side was sitting in the opposition, and they said, we need biometrics and a clean voters list. Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC in government began the process to give them and this entire country a clean voters list. Mr. Speaker, there was even a move to see how we can enhance biometrics at the place of poll. And that is because the APNU AFC stood strong on free, fair, and free from fair elections in our country. It is the APNU AFC in 2020 to this day, sir, continue to make the call for a clean voters list and biometrics, because our focus on this side of the house is to ensure that every man has a vote, a single vote. Every person is entitled to a single vote, and no amendment that the People's Progressive Party has brought so far to this house can guarantee us that, especially after taking note of all the findings in the elections recount that we had in 2020. Mr. Speaker, I wish to bring to your attention, sir, that when it comes to biometrics around the world, there are over 40 countries, Mr. Speaker, over 40 countries that have introduced advanced biometric technologies in their electoral systems to guard against electoral fraud. And over 40 countries in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, from 2015 to 2025, over 40 countries have introduced advanced biometrics in their system. Mr. Speaker, the beautiful country of Ghana, with over 16 million voters on their list, introduced biometrics, advanced biometrics, within 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks, they were able to introduce advanced biometrics, all because they want to remove fraud from their electoral process. Mr. Speaker, Nigeria took 8 months to introduce biometrics, advanced biometrics, mind you. India took 14 months, and the UK took 12 months to introduce advanced biometrics. The Prime Minister is asking, what is biometrics? It is an advanced, the advanced biometrics, sir, includes fingerprint and facial recognition to verify the voters as they present themselves to vote. Mr. Speaker, may I also say to you that all the electoral reform laws that we wish to address and speak to, when it comes to ensure that we have a clean list of electors, the removal by the government side of that change that they were proposing, removing may and keeping the shall. They wanted to remove the shall and put the may. Since we have elections date known now as the 1st of September, and mind you, election date was only announced, it wasn't gazetted as yet, so it is still subject to change. It is still subject to change by the very person who made the announcement. So, because it is not gazetted as yet, we can't say confidently, though we are working towards it, we can't say confidently that that is the date unless we see it being gazetted. And when it is gazetted, then is when we can pronounce on it as our election date. And the commitment to strengthening ROPA, as the Attorney General indicated, is not going to have the weight to give us credible elections until we have a credible voters list which has to be cleansed. Has to be. That is where it starts from. Mr. Speaker, I want to also say to the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa, who said that the submissions to GCOM has always been clean and proper, that the People's Progressive Party's submission to GCOM has always been clean and proper. That's what my honorable friend Zulfikar Mustafa said. Let me remind him, in 2016 local government elections, an individual by the name of Joan Ambedkar had to write on social media that she and her family's names were included as signatures to support a candidate of which she never gave the authority for such to be done, and they had to remove it. Let me remind the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa that in 2018 they had to remove themselves, the People's Progressive Party, from participating in constituency Nikodak Mariajuana at Wakenham because there were forged signatures on the list to support a candidate. And let me remind the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa that the other day, as recent as 2023, the Vice President had to offer an apology for the dead woman's name that was on the list as a signed person for a candidate. So I don't know how the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa can stand at the podium and say that their submission to GCOM has always been clean and proper. The APNU AFC, the APNU by itself, the AFC by itself, we have never had those kinds of situations before GCOM. The only political party that has always had fraud labeled to them in their manner of doing things was the People's Progressive Party. And I remind the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa that in a book written by Balram Singh Rai, where he spoke about the 1960 internal People's Progressive Party election, he documented how Dr. Jagan favored and rigged the system to favor Brintley Ben over him for the position as General Secretary. So don't you dare come here and try to associate fraud to the PNC, the AP, and you are the AFC. Nowhere is it documented, but what is documented is all that was exposed for the People's Progressive Party. Fraud is under your skin and in your eyes. We all can see it. Mr. Speaker, let me come back now to this clean voters list and ensuring that in our electoral...
Honorable member, please allow the honorable member speaking. And we're hearing a lot of unparliamentary words. Please.
Mr. Speaker, they can shout how many times they want. It will never change the fact. It will never change the fact on what I am presenting, sir. Because I know that I speak from a position of facts. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, it seems like I may have to take a suspension necessarily, unless we can have some order in the House. You get back your time, Honorable Mahipur.
Thank you very much, Comrade Speaker. Thank you for your gracious protection, sir. So when I'm now coming back to the electoral reform process that requires, as I have said, a clean voters list. And I want to make reference to several countries around the world again. When it comes to the United Kingdom, in their elections, their electoral body has to provide an electoral list that is clean within, it has to be finalized 12 working days before polling day. 12 working days before polling day. What that means is that the qualifying date for you to be on the list to exercise your franchise, it has to be 12 working days before polling. In our country, if I am guided correctly, our qualifying date is about 3 months or thereabout. So what that does, Comrade Speaker, is that it acts in a manner to disenfranchise people who may very well be 18 closer. So when we talk about strengthening ROPA and strengthening our electoral process, we must not contribute to adding to the many anomalies that already exist with this fraudulent list that we have, which we are seeking to go to elections with. In Canada, it is 28 days before polling. In Australia, it is 30 days before polling. And they have to have a claims and objections in Australia 7 days before polling. And in India, it is 30 days before polling. So I say all of that. I say all of that to say to you that the focus of GCOM has to be to give this nation a clean voters list. And it is us in this honorable house, both government and opposition, that ought to work to see that we get a clean voters list. Mr. Speaker, for 5 years, the APNU, AFC, stood in front of GCOM calling for biometrics and a clean voters list. 5 years before that, Honorable Barrett Jagdeo called for a clean voters list and biometrics. 10 years after, we still do not have a clean voters list and biometrics. How serious are we about having credible elections in Guyana? How serious are we, sir, about having credible elections in Guyana? Mr. Speaker, may I re-emphasize the point that a credible elections has to be based on a credible voters list. And I don't believe we are heading in that direction because of this bloated list. I don't know how many countries, sir, I don't know how many countries, Mr. Speaker, have their voters list equivalent or almost equivalent to their population. And Mr. Speaker, if we are to accept that this list that we have is credible, then the Honorable Priya Manikchand may not be engaging in a proper exercise to distribute the $55,000 to over 200,000 children. Because if this country has about 800,000 as our population, and the Honorable Minister is engaged in distributing over 200,000 to children, then the 600,000, when you subtract the two, and you take into account the children who are from 0 birth to 3 years, have not entered the nursery school as yet, and you cater for those who are at 16 to 18, how do we have a list that is this bloated and we want to tell this nation that we will have credible elections? How in God's name is that so? Mr. Speaker, the other point I wish to make is that when it comes to GCOM, we in this house should never seek to give authority to one individual. And the sad reality, as we have seen, happening at the Guyana Elections Commission is that it always comes down to a 4-3 vote. And oftentimes, it is 3 saying yea and 3 saying nay. And that one individual that has the power will either go yea or nay, making it 4 for one side. The intention, sir, the intention when GCOM was put together, was for that one individual to find common grounds, to be the arbitrator, to be the balance, to find the compromise. And that is why the selection of that individual requires the participation of the opposition. That is why the opposition would submit a list, and that is why a single name will be extracted from the list. Because the intention, sir, is to always ensure that you have an individual that will stand with integrity to represent the interest of the people of the country and not a political party. And that is the sad reality. And we in this house should have been moving in that direction, sir, to correct all of these anomalies that exist in our electoral process. Not simply bringing some amendments to ROPA in 2022, and then you gotta run back and bring another amendment to the very amendment that you brought in 2022, and you're doing a piecemeal here, a piecemeal there, you're extracting here, you're extracting there. Why did we not look at the electoral system holistically? Why did we not focus on our electoral process in a more holistic manner so that we could have indeed, sir, have credible elections in this country? Mr. Speaker, I end by saying that we on the opposition side have fundamental issues with the list, with the voters list. We on the opposition side, and I do not have the authority to speak on behalf of Dr. Asha Kisoon, our Deputy Speaker, who has already signaled her intent. But when I say we on the opposition side, I speak about the 31 members of Parliament from the APNU AFC, and we do not have confidence in this list that we are having here to go to elections. And we know that it will not be credible because the foundation is bad. The integrity of the elections will be questionable because the foundation is bad. And every aspect with this bloated list, with this fraudulent list, will not give us credible elections. But that, sir, that will not derail the people of Guyana. That will not remove them from recognizing that voting change is necessary. Because with the abundance of oil resources in this country, they still cannot feel the ease, especially with cost of living. They still cannot feel the ease of inclusivity. They still cannot feel the ease of having a genuine government that cares for them. So I appeal to them, notwithstanding the fraudulent lists, they must take note that the power lies in their hands. And when they go to the polls, they must do what they rightfully have to do. And that is to vote the People's Progressive Party out of government so that we can return real democracy and begin the process of giving them a credible voters list so that we can have proper elections indeed in this country. Comrade Speaker, I thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, Mr. Mahipal. And now for the Attorney General, Minister of Legal Affairs, the Honorable Mohabir Anil Nadlal.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, there is a word that they have made a movie after in Hollywood, and the word is serendipity. It means a fortunate coincidence. And what we have witnessed here on the eve of an election in Guyana is a fortunate coincidence, where the people of our country who will be going to the polls and who may have forgotten what they endured for 5 months. For 5 months they endured at Ashmin's building, when they saw hour by hour the attempts to steal their votes, when 100 governments across the world pronounced that elections were free and fair, and the attempts by the opposition to rig it must be rejected, when all the organizations in this hemisphere, the CARICOM, the OAS, the Commonwealth, the United Nations, when all the diplomatic community, when all the local and international organizations witnessed a free and fair elections, and then saw 5 months of shenaniganism to rig those elections, if, Mr. Speaker, if our people's memories were being dulled by the passage of time, what they witnessed today would have refreshed those wounds. It would have refreshed those scars. It would have brought those memories starkly back. And you, I want to thank you on that side for put us in that good stead as we approach these elections. You have done a lot of good work for us, in particular the Honorable Member Ganesh Mahipal. And I want to over and over again, I want to thank you. I think you did a remarkable job. I think you did a remarkable job to remind, in particular, all the small parties that had to raise their hands against you because they couldn't believe that you were so stark in your nakedness and fraud. They, all of them, who were with you during the campaign, and when they saw your dastard acts of attempted electoral robbery, they had to come and decide of righteousness. You have brought them back to us. Thank you very much for doing that. But Mr. Speaker, today there is an article in a daily newspaper published. And as I listened to the presentation, I read this article before I came, and my distinguished brother, the most reliable and honorable Robeson Horatio Brindley Ben, brought it for me to read into the record. And Mr. Speaker, the article is titled, "The PNCR and AFC do not belong in democratic politics." That's the title of the article. When I speak about serendipity, this is what I'm speaking about. Today, as you spoke to the nation, an article is in today's newspaper. It says there are moments in the life of a nation when its soul is tested, when the lies are so monumental, the deceit so absolute, that to pretend otherwise is to become complicit in the great farce. Guyana had such a moment in March of 2020. It was not merely a bungling of process or a misinterpretation of numbers. It was an attempted coup, wrapped in ill-fitting garments of legality and draped in the stench of desperation. I could not have put it in more poetic and linguistic figurative language than this. The People's National Congress and the Alliance for Change were the architects of this disgrace. These are two parties for whom shame is a stranger, and that has proven that for them, democracy is nothing more than a game to be played when convenient and discarded when inconvenient. To speak of these parties as democratic actors is to debase the very term. The PNC heir to a legacy of rigged elections and autocratic misrule long ago abandoned any genuine commitment to the democratic project. It has always preferred the scent of power to the slow, disciplined work of democratic governance. Its partner in the ignominy, the AFC, once clothed itself in the garments of principled opposition, only to become a willing appendage to the very tyranny it once claimed to oppose. Together they constitute not a political force, but a grotesque parody, a reminder of all that is so brittle, broken, and bitter in Guyanese politics. One must marvel at the audacity of these parties to invoke the language of electoral integrity. It is a kind of political pornography, a violation of truth so obscene, it ought to be banned from polite conversation. To hear the PNC and the AFC speak of free and fair election is to enter a hall of mirrors where the words lose their meaning and history is reduced to a malleable script. These are not parties with a stake in democracy. These are parties with a stake in power, and they will mortgage the very soul of the nation to maintain their grip of it. It was laid bare in 2020. The world watched aghast. It was laid bare in 2020. The world watched aghast as numbers were conjured out of thin air, as sheets were hidden and replaced, and as certain persons were reduced to clowns in a farcical circus. It was not incompetence, it was design, not error, but intent. It was the heist of democracy, attempted in broad daylight, carried out with brazenness, that would have made even the most seasoned autocrat blush, and yet no apology was offered, no contrition, only the continued posture of victimhood, the invocation of conspiracies, the refusal to admit the truth that the people had simply rejected them. The PNCR and the AFC believe that the Guyanese electorate to be stupid. That is the root of their pathology. They believe that memory is short, that the lies will stick if repeated often enough, that the long history of rigged ballots and violent suppression will simply be forgotten under the weight of new propaganda. But the people remember. They remember Burnham's iron grip. They remember Hoyt's contortions. They remember the AFC betrayal, its slow and eager seduction into the PNCR's orbit. They remember the days when democracy meant absurdity, where elections are held only to ratify decisions made elsewhere. What is democracy to these people? What is democracy to these people? It is a slogan, not a principle, a means to an end. And when the people say no, they answer with their manipulation, not humility. There is no repentance here, no sign of internal reckoning, only the same exhausted playbook. Cast doubt, sow confusion, scream about rigging, and hope that the noise drowns out the truth. Let us be clear, these are not normal political parties. These are relics of authoritarianism dressed up for the modern age. They are not part of the solution, they are the problem incarnate. To permit them to operate as legitimate actors within the democratic system is to sanction sabotage. To include them in election is to invite chaos. To include them in the election is to invite chaos. In any functioning democracy, they would have been disqualified, not for ideology, but for action. Not for their beliefs, but for their attempted theft of the people's voice. The idea that these parties can be reformed is a fantasy entertained only by the naive or complicit. A leopard does not change its spot because the jungle changes. The PNCR and AFC are unfit for democratic life in the way that a thief is unfit to guard a bank vault. Their very presence in the political arena is an insult to those who fought, bled, and died for the right to vote. Guyana cannot build a stable democratic future while entertaining political actors who view democracy as an obstacle to be overcome rather than a value to be cherished. These parties must not be allowed to launder their reputations through participation. They must be named, shamed, and rejected. Let them write their memoirs. Let them speak in empty halls. Let them vanish into the footnotes of history where all failed actors eventually go. But let them not be allowed to govern again or even to compete for government. For to allow that is to surrender to cynicism. And cynicism is the slow poison of any democracy. Do I have to say anything more, Mr. Speaker? And those are only my opening remarks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that should be framed and put on the walls of every Guyanese home as we go to the elections. It should be framed. And your speeches today, we will pay to have it played all over the country. Your performance today, we will pay to have it shown all over the country. Yes, that's what we will do. So, Mr. Speaker, I begin in my attempt to answer some of the contentions advanced. And Mr. Speaker, perhaps in keeping with the theme set by that author, let me say that there is no other country in the Commonwealth Caribbean that has had to struggle. No other people in the Commonwealth Caribbean have had to struggle to secure and protect their right to vote as Guyanese did, and are still are doing none. So we suffer no compare when it comes to democracy. Ramjatan, as the article has said, he sold his soul a long time ago. He sold his soul a long time ago. The distillers took and then the PNC took the rest. So, Mr. Speaker, we know on this side about democracy. We had to fight for the vote. They took it from the people of Guyana in 1968. They took it from the people of Guyana in 1973. They took it from the people of Guyana in 1980. They took it from the people of Guyana in 1985. Our brothers and sisters died. They were murdered in protection of the ballot. We have that recorded as part of our history. And there is one party that is guilty of that. And the history will broker no opposition. It is the People's National Congress. They are responsible, and history has recorded that without any equivocation. So, Mr. Speaker, look, this is what I'm talking about, Son Chapman. He has no idea about the electoral democracy. So, Mr. Speaker, there is nobody in this House who can lecture the People's Progressive Party on democracy and the fight for democracy and freedom in this country. Mr. Speaker, even the right to have the votes counted, we took 28 at the place of poll. We took 28 long years in the opposition. People died simply to get the ballots counted at the place of poll. That simple, universally accepted principle we died for in this country. You murdered people in this country for that right to have the ballots counted. Not you, Mr. Speaker, the PNC. That is what we are fighting to protect in this country. And the architects of those designs are on the other side. They are very much here. Mr. Speaker, they are criticizing the GCOM. We took 30 years to arrive at the formula of GCOM current composition. 30 years we had to get the Carter Center to come here to broker a deal. They had a GCOM chairman who was universally described as a toothless poodle. A toothless poodle he was called. Remember, you had a GCOM chair, a GCOM that they controlled based upon the number of votes. At every election they rigged. They took 2/3 majority. So they controlled the GCOM, they controlled the chairman. We had one representative or two representatives based upon the number of seats that they decided to give us. That is how GCOM was constituted prior to Carter Center coming here, Mr. Speaker. They don't want to talk about that. Mahipal, you don't understand these things. You have to read and be educated. Mr. Speaker, when the Carter formula was put forward, Mr. Hoyt agreed to it. And the Carter formula worked to appoint a chairman of GCOM. And one thing Mr. Mahipal got right, the honorable member, one thing he got right, that is that the chairperson must come through a process, because the GCOM is partisanly constituted, 3 on the opposition and 3 on the government side. The chairman had to necessarily be neutral. And that is why the designers of that formula crafted a process that ensured equal participation between the leader of the opposition and the president. Equal participation to say that a list must come from the leader of the opposition and that the president must extract one name from that list. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Hoyt was a senior counsel. He didn't have a problem with the formula. Then Mr. Corbyn was a lawyer. He didn't have a problem with the formula. Then we get a soldier who became president. An army general became president and all hell broke loose. He began to not understand anything about the formula. He began to, everything, he said it must only require judges. Then it must only require fit and proper person. And Mr. Speaker, at the end, what he did, he violated the essence of the formula by rejecting 18 names from the leader of the opposition. List after list, 3 lists of 6 names each, he rejected from the leader of the opposition. And on one dark Diwali night, the Hindus will tell you that Diwali night is the darkest night of the year. And that is when he decided to surreptitiously and secretly swear in a man named James Patterson. Unilaterally, for the first time in the history of the Carter formula, they broke it and violated it. And today, these guys are trying to lecture to us. And we had to go to the CCJ. We went to the High Court, then we went to the Court of Appeal, and then we went to the Caribbean Court of Justice. And the Caribbean Court of Justice said that the constitutional appointment was wrong, that the Constitution was violated. They violated the Constitution.
That's what they said.
Breached the trust. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? It is as a result of that ruling. It is as a result of that ruling that they appointed, President Granger appointed the very chair of the GCOM with the agreement of the leader of the opposition. You appointed the very chair of GCOM. And when the very chair of GCOM was acting in your interest, oh, she was the best thing. When she ruled in your favor, in the case of Esther Pereira, she was the best thing since sliced bread. The very chairman that you're cussing now. On the very chairman that you're cussing now, she ruled in your favor in the case of Esther Pereira. And oh God, how learned she was, how distinguished she was. She was an erudite jurisprudentialist. She was a judicial officer of the highest pedigree. Well, it's the same person now, but because it doesn't suit your dictatorial vision and pursuits, she is now a devil. She's now a devil. She's now a devil. That is what you have reduced people to. That is what you all have reduced people to in your quest for power. And that is why the author of that article said what he said. So, Mr. Speaker, that is a good backdrop for me to get to today's debate. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member Roysdale Ford began by talking about a whole host of things that we never consulted. We never consulted on this bill. Mr. Speaker, the public record will reflect that from 2021, about June of 2021, we released the draft amendments of ROPA and NRA on websites, on the Ministry of Legal Affairs website, on the Parliamentary Affairs Ministry website. We invited submissions from members of the public, and we received many submissions. It was there for nearly a year. And then we had face-to-face meetings with those who made submissions. Transparency International made submissions. A number of organizations made submissions. Political parties made submissions. GCOM made submissions. APNU, AFC did not offer a single line. Not a single line of objection, of suggestion. Then we held, Mr. Speaker, we held a grand consultation here, right in this dome, that lasted for nearly 6 hours. Comrade Ramjatan, the honorable member, was present. Vincent Alexander was present. Members of the PNC were present. Not a single sensible objection they made. Not a single proper recommendation they made. None. Not to mention, Mr. Speaker, that while they were in government from 2015 to 2020, they made no amendment whatsoever to the election laws. They made one, which I'll deal with. One. So all the problems that you all have with the electoral system, you had 5 years to fix it. Put point to one bill, point to one amendment, Comrade Ramjatan, one that you tabled in this house. Point to one, any one of you tabled in this house, to correct the malady of errors that you're identifying. None. None you passed. None you proposed. Then when we ask you, we consult with you, we give you the drafts, we tell you, show us what you want to amend. Tell us what we have omitted, but you did nothing. You did nothing. Then the bills came to the House. They were on the order paper for months. Any one of them could have proposed an amendment. Any one of them could have proposed an amendment. Yes, you all are lazy and incompetent. You can't do nothing. So you produce no amendment. None. But you come here to grandstand. You come here to grandstand and believe that we will stand here and take it. No. The people of Guyana must know how incompetent you all are. You can't put forward a single amendment. Even today, you could have brought an amendment. Where is it? Where is it? Nothing. Nothing. And you come here to bluff. Withdraw. Withdraw. I withdraw because I want to withdraw, not because of you. Not because of you. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the history of the bill. Then, the honorable member and many of them on that side, they spoke about irregularities at the elections and what happened at the electoral places and so on. Mr. Speaker, they tried before the election results were declared. That's how the 5 months began. They got one of the candidates named Yulita Moore, and they tried to have a recount done even before we agreed to the recount. They said they had 1 million discrepancies, and they got Yulita Moore to try to block the declaration of the results in the High Court. We went to the full court of the High Court. We went to the Court of Appeal, and we went to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and all the courts told them that you have to file an election petition. You can't question the results now. And then, Mr. Speaker, they agreed to the recount, and we came right here, and we spent months to recount all the ballots. By that time, they chased away most of the international observers. They chased away the international observers. They refused Carter Center re-entry into the country. And they decided by themselves that they will choose one observer only, that their president described as the most legitimate interlocutor. You can't stop them with language. The most legitimate interlocutor, the CARICOM. And they chose the CARICOM. And they hand the process over to the CARICOM. And when the CARICOM dropped the report from them, they bust and scatter. You know what the CARICOM people tell them? The CARICOM people tell them that their objections in the polling stations, in the counting stations, were a fishing expedition, that they cast their net so wide, they can't pull in nothing. That one Kakabelly will never pull in. Not a Kakabelly in the wide net that they trap.
Are you a call Ganesh, man?
Stupid.
I object.
Nonsense.
You can't call Ganesh Cockabelly.
That is what the report said. They spread the net. They couldn't catch nothing. Not a silver bear.
I object to calling Ganesh Cockabelly.
So, Mr. Speaker, when that didn't satisfy them, they activated their main architect. They activated their main architect. Lowenfield, the last card in the pack. The Esabushi. The Esabushi, the draft. And he decided he will take over the process.
Yes.
And he started to tabulate.
Honorable member, the person is not here, so you'll have to.
The chief elections officer, the statutory officer. And he started to go on a frolic of his own. He started to add up what he wanted to add up and discounted what he wanted to discount.
100,000 votes.
160,000 votes he declared as invalid for the PPP. 160,000 votes. We had to go to the court again, Mr. Speaker. We went all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice. All the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and the Caribbean Court of Justice said that he is not a lone ranger, that he must act at all times upon the instructions and directions of the Commission. And Mr. Speaker, that is how we were able to bring this thing to an end. And Mr. Speaker, they didn't finish. All the courts told them that they must go and file elections petition. And that is where they must canvass their irregularities and their objections. And they must put all their strong arguments that they were polluting the public domain with. And they filed 2 elections petition, not 1, 2. And Mr. Speaker,
The person who filed today.
rise therefore, the honorable member, file 2. Right? And Mr. Speaker, one went all the way to the CCJ and was dismissed. They couldn't even solve it on Mr. Granger properly. They couldn't even solve it on Mr. Granger. And then the next one came. The next one came. And that traveled all the way, I believe, to the Court of Appeal. I don't think they went higher than that. And that one was also thrown out, Mr. Speaker. So these people are not without remedy. They are not without remedy. This narrative that they are peddling, this rhetoric, this propaganda that they are peddling, they peddle it all over. They peddle it in the court and they were chased out. So, Mr. Speaker, the ground is well covered and the records are well settled. But they have no shame. Shame is a stranger to them. So they will repeat.
It's a non-parliamentary word too.
Yeah, okay. They have no integrity. They have no integrity. Integrity is a stranger to them. So, Mr. Speaker, you and I can't do that. We can't tell such barefaced lies. Barefaced inaccuracies. Barefaced inaccuracies. I can't do it, no matter how much I try. But you all have a gift. One thing I will take from you. One thing I will take from you, I'll borrow for you momentarily, I don't want to keep it, is that ability with a straight face and without any dignity and integrity to say something that is so ludicrous that you have been saying here all day today. So, Mr. Speaker, they say that we have not done in amendments, Mr. Speaker. When I total the amendments as I was sitting there, it's over 100 amendments we tabled to NRA and to ROPA. Over 100 amendments, Mr. Speaker. And we covered the wide gamut. I hear all of them speak about the observer reports. They speak about the observer reports and the recommendation, but they never said that the observer told them that they lose elections. Every observer, first thing they said, that you all lose elections. They forget that part of the report they're not mentioning.
The most transparent man
And Mr. Speaker, they have misquoted many of the reports. Many of the reports. But we took into account many of the recommendations, and they are here. Mr. Speaker, they're talking about a list. The record of this country will reflect that they won the 2015 elections with that very list, that very bloated list, Mr. Speaker.
And local government.
And Mr. Speaker, they were so impressed and enthralled with the list that they came here in the parliament and they passed an amendment to extend that life of that list to hold the local government elections. Oh my. That very list that they find so objectionable, they come here to extend the life of it and they hold another election on that list, the 2016 local government election. And if that was not enough, Mr. Speaker, in the 2018 local government election, they used that very list. They used that very list. And they get trashing at every one of those elections. And in 2020, they were going to hold that list, they were going to use that same list. They were going to use that same list. But they started the house registration to keep themselves in government. That is what they did. There's a red file under it. A red file under it. Mr. Speaker, when the no confidence motion was passed, I remember at the bottom. 1 second.
All the horses and everything put on the outfit.
Mr. Speaker, the election, the no confidence motion was in December 2018, and it was on the 22nd of December 2018. And Prime Minister Nagamutu went downstairs of the parliament and held a press conference, and he said that the government has fallen and that we must go to an election. By that time, GCOM, through Yolande Ward, look, I have it here, the Chronicle. Where is the camera? The Chronicle, Yolande Ward, Yolande Ward, 27th of December 2018, issued a press statement. GCOM ready for elections. Chronicle. The day after Boxing Day, GCOM was ready. This is before they consulted and advised and conspired with Lowenfield. Before the message passed. Before the perversity began.
Before the meeting by Brandsville.
Yes, this is what we were going to. They said they were ready for elections. I have it here.
And Hetsburgo.
GCOM ready for elections. Must go check it. You have me? You have my photographs? Kept Yolanda will photograph. Check that. So, Mr. Speaker, that 1.5 years that they spent squatting in office was all designed to defeat the electorate, to avoid going to an elections. The same way that they would love not to go to these elections. Mr. Speaker, but let's get back to the amendments. Mr. Speaker, we first of all dealt with continuous registration and we made it permanent. We entrenched the cycle of continuous registration and we put 2 intervals, 2 qualifying dates per year, so that within 6 months of every year, any given year, we will have a list ready. Mr. Speaker, that answers all the problems with the list. And then we put a whole set of mechanisms in the law to clean the list. So, Mr. Speaker, let me read quickly what the amendments say. Now, this is what we said, Mr. Speaker. Every year, registration of persons who, on the 30th of June, are qualified under subsection 1A or B shall be continuous from January to May. So from January to May, everybody who would become 18 on the 30th of June will be registered up to May. And then the machinery stops and you put them on and they become part of the PLE, and then you move to the OLE. And then another one on the 31st of December are qualified shall be continuous. The registration shall be continuous from July to November. So at any given time during the year, Mr. Speaker, you have a continuous list that is being cleansed. And then we have the cleansing mechanism, how we will cleanse it. It is set out in section 8 of the Registration Act. Mr. Speaker, the Registrar of Boards and Debts appointed under the Registration and Debts Act shall send to the Commissioner once every month a list of persons 14 years and more whose debts have been registered under the Registration of Boards and Debts Act in the preceding month. So every month you have a cleansing exercise. Every single month. That was never in the law, Mr. Speaker. We put that in the law. And then the Commissioner of Police shall do the same thing. And then the Chief Medical Officer from the Ministry of Health shall do the same thing. So we do all of this, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there is checks and balances, so that if all the debts are not registered, you have other places where you can go and get the statistics to clean the list. Mr. Speaker, once this is implemented, and it is implemented, you will have a clean list. Mr. Speaker,
As you take a pause, let's ask the Honorable Prime Minister to move that you begin some time to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that we suspend the necessary.
Time to conclude.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I ask that the honorable member be granted an additional 5 minutes to continue his presentation.
Honorable member, you may continue the standing orders, provide that after your first 45 minutes, you can get another 15. Go ahead, honorable member.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hear they come back with these hackneyed arguments, these old hackneyed arguments about the list is illegal. Mr. Speaker, they went to court over and over again. We went there in 2019 when they tried to remove persons' names from the list, and we approached the court, and Chief Justice George ruled. And I keep saying that they never appealed. They never appealed. That decision is there. That you cannot remove persons from the list if they are outside of Guyana or if they are not home. And then we put the amendments in the act now, capturing that decision, Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the Constitution. And they challenge it again. They challenge it again in the name of Carol Joseph this time. And they lost. And Mr. Speaker, again they didn't appeal. Again they didn't appeal. If you are aggrieved, if you feel strongly about a position, and you file a case about it, and you lost, you won't appeal? Common sense will dictate. None of the lawyers that they have, whether it's Ford, whether it's Basil Williams, whether it's Dexter Todd, nobody appealing, but they will run around the country and say that the decision is wrong. That the decision is wrong. They have to pay $1.5 million to me. By the end, they're supposed to have paid it already. Tomorrow I'll check and I'll institute proceedings. Because the court ordered costs against them. Because they're wasting the court's time, arguing the same thing over and over again. Mr. Speaker, then I heard one of them brought calling names of countries. Calling names of countries that have biometrics. Mr. Speaker, I got a list here of the countries' names that he called. Let me see.
Yes, true. The UK don't use biometrics to vote.
Mr. Speaker,
They don't use
he
biometrics
called
to vote.
Nigeria. He called India. He called Ghana. He called the United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, I have here the voters' roll for those countries. The voters' roll for India is nearly 197 million persons on the voters list. In Ghana, it's about 100 and something million. I can't remember. I wrote it down just now. But we have 600,000 people in this country, Mr. Speaker. We have 600,000 voters. And we have a form system of biometrics. We have biometrics. We have biometrics at place of poll. We have ID card. We have date of birth. We have pictorial identification. We have the folio. In a small population, Mr. Speaker, they got more voters in a building in India than we have in the whole country. And that is why, and there is no way, I hear Honorable Member Mahipal say, that in India, you have, 15 days, you register people up to 15 days before the election. Is he insane? With a population of nearly 100 or something, 200 million voters, you registering people 7 days before elections? The people don't even listen to what they say. They don't listen to what they say. What he's told us does not make sense. Doesn't make sense. And Mr. Speaker, England got 48 million registered electors. 48 million registered electors. And they were able to count. They were able to count their ballots and declare elections in less than 48 hours. We took 5 months to count 600 pieces of paper. 600,000 pieces of paper here. So, Mr. Speaker, look at them. They went to the court 15 times and lost all 15. Girl, what I'm going to tell you, I'm sorry for you. I'm really sorry for you. I don't know when the election results come out, how you will end up when the election results come out and you all lose again. And you know what? Although the honorable member is hardworking, they will not even consider her for a seat next go wrong. Mr. Speaker, we have a system here, Mr. Speaker, that works. Imagine, I heard one of them say, the honorable member Amanza Dexdir, her biggest problem is that the timeline, the GCOM work plan fits smoothly into the date that the president fixed for election. That is, that's how it's supposed to be, Mr. Speaker. She got a problem with that. She said, imagine the deceit. Imagine the deceit. That is why he had to consult. That is why he consulted, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there is synergy, that when he fixes a date, that the machinery is ready to deliver. These people are not coherent. They are not intelligent. Their presentation does not make sense. And they come here. They come here and they create an emotional basket case. Want to cry and want to shout about all kinds of things. Mr. Speaker, we have here amendments that treat with, my honorable members, Zulfikar Mustafa dealt with many of them. Mr. Speaker, the statements of poll, which up to now, they have not been able to produce. Up to now, they have not been able to produce. Now, Mr. Speaker, the RO is mandated to post all up online. The RO must post them when at the end of poll. And if he can't post them, and the supernumerary ROs, they will post them too. And then GCOM will post them. And then we created a series of offenses that if there is any failure to post or any wrong statements of poll are posted, you have strong jail sentences. Mr. Speaker, we put also in the law that polling places must be known long before elections and must be published. We put form timelines for proxy voting and all the other mechanisms where they were loose and there were gaps and there were weaknesses that were capable of manipulation and capable of exploitation. We repaired all of them. We patched the holes. We tightened the screws. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a good machinery now. And only those who do not want free and fair elections, only those who are bent on rigging, Prac is on his way to the slaughterhouse.
No, man.
And you know what they say?
Don't forget the
You do anything on your way to the slaughterhouse.
Prac
So this is his last few hours here. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend these amendments. They are good and they are the best for this country at this point in time. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, Mr. Mohaber Anil Nandalal. Honorable members, I now put the question that the Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2025, Bill number 9 of 2025, be read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Let the bill be read a second time.
Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2025, Bill number 9 of 2025.
We will resolve ourselves into committee of the whole to consider the clauses of the bill. Honorable members, we are now in committee, and I propose the question that clauses 1 to 3 stand part of the bill. Honorable members, I now put the question that clauses 1 to 3 stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clauses 1 to 3 now stands part of the bill. I now put a question that the bill be reported to the Assembly. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Sorry. We need to go back a bit. We have an amendment. We have an amendment. So let's go back. The amendment reflects on clause 3. So again, I'll propose the question that clauses 1 and 2 stand part of the bill. Though I now put a question that clauses 1 and 2 stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clauses 1 and 2 stand part of the bill. I have an amendment to clause 3, and that's a deletion. I now propose a question that clause 3 be deleted. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Clause 3 is now struck from the bill. Honorable members, I now move the motion that the bill be reported to the Assembly. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Let the Assembly resume. Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to report that the representation of the People Amendment Bill 2025, Bill number 9 of 2025, was considered in committee clause by clause and was passed with one amendment.
And you now move that the bill be read a third time and pass as amended. Honorable Attorney General, you have to complete that motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I now move that the bill be read a third time
And pass.
and passed.
As
sorry.
amended.
As amended, sorry.
Thank you. Honorable members, the question is that the representation of the People Amendment Bill 2025, Bill number 9 of 2025, be read a third time and pass as amended. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Let the bill be read the third time.
Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2025, Bill number 9 of 2025.
Honorable members, we will now proceed with the second reading of the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, Bill number 8 of 2025, first published on the 15th of May of this year. Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, recently our country has experienced a surge in a certain type of criminal activities committed by persons wearing a mask or other disguises, which has posed a significant threat to public safety. Generally, while facial coverings may be lawfully justified in specific contexts, such as in the interest of public health, as we well know, as well as religious expressions or cultural traditions, their misuse for criminal purposes undermine public safety and security. To address this issue, the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025 prohibits the wearing of masks or disguises to commit an offense specified under the Act. This bill is therefore both reasonable and necessary to deter criminal behavior, enhance public safety, and aid law enforcement. Mr. Speaker, one of the primary objectives of the bill is deterrence. When individuals are aware that concealing their identity while committing a crime will result in additional charges and harsher penalties, they may be less likely to engage in such behavior. Concealing one's identity emboldens offenders while reducing the risk of being identified or apprehended. Criminalizing the act of concealing one's identity while committing an offense aids law enforcement in more swiftly identifying and apprehending the offender. The bill therefore sends a clear message that anonymity is not a shield for committing crime. Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear that this bill doesn't outlaw wearing of masks or any facial disguises. It only applies when that is used, that mask or that facial disguise or facial apparel is used in the commission of a crime. There are a number of jurisdictions that have led the way in the area of the law, including Canada, certain states within the United States of America, and our regional neighbor, St. Lucia. In Canada, for example, the law prior to 2013 did not specifically prohibit wearing masks or disguises during protests. However, around that period, law enforcement agencies began expressing concerns about their ability to enforce laws during riots, as mass protesters made identification extremely challenging. This was evident at the 2011 Stanley Cup riot in Vancouver and the G20 protesters' clash in Toronto in 2010. In response to growing concerns, the Preventing Persons from Concealing their Identity During Riots and Unlawful Assemblies Act was introduced in the House of Commons in October 2011. This legislation enhanced the Criminal Code of Canada, particularly targeting individuals involved in unlawful assemblies while concealing their identity with a mask or other disguise. Speaking on the bill, as it then was, a member of the House stated, and I want to read, sir, with your permission, into the record of this assembly what that debater in the Canadian Parliament said about the bill, because I consider it very relevant and germane to the issue at hand. I quote, Criminals are well aware in this age of social media and all-pervasive cell phone cameras that they run a very high risk of their behavior being recorded, and they had better hide their identity if they want to avoid being caught and brought to justice for their actions. More and more of them are doing exactly that. In too many cases, these offenders escape identification by covering or obscuring their face at the time of the offense. This is unacceptable. This is an unacceptable state of affairs. No one should be able to commit violent and destructive crimes against persons and properties with impunity under a cloak of anonymity, unquote. Very powerful, very resonating sentiments. Notable, Section 351(2) of the Canadian Criminal Code also provides for, quote, disguise with intent, whereby, quote again, everyone who, with intent to commit an indictable offense, has his face masked or colored or is otherwise disguised is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years. Very harsh provision. I move across, sir, to the United States of America. There are a number of states within the United States of America that have the anti-mask laws, as it is called in that jurisdiction. And while these laws may vary from state to state, the general objective remains. And that is to prevent individuals from hiding behind anonymity to engage in illegal and harmful acts while avoiding legal consequences. California, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, and Florida, for example, make it an offense to wear a mask if the person commits a crime or intends to commit a crime. While in Florida, North Dakota, and Oklahoma, it is also an offense to wear a mask with the intent to harass or intimidate other persons. In St. Lucia, according to St. Lucia's criminal code, it is an offense where, I quote, a person who in any public way or public place wears a mask with the intent to commit a crime. Guyana, unquote. Guyana is therefore not alone in taking this legislative approach, which can be viewed as a measured response to a problem law enforcement officials have been grappling with, and the need for which has been further highlighted and intensified by recent events. Guyana recently experienced protests which became violent, where some of the protesters menaced, robbed, looted, vandalized, and destroyed businesses and private and public properties while covering their faces for no apparent reason other than to avoid social recognition and or frustrate the efforts of law enforcement agencies. To this end, this bill, similar to that of Canada, makes it an offense for any person to wear a mask to conceal their identity while committing any offense against public order, including riots, unlawful assembly, and acts of terrorism. The bill also extends its application to target the commission of other specific offenses while wearing a mask or disguise, such as larceny, housebreaking, burglary, robbery, and it increases the penalty for assaulting any person while wearing a mask. So, Mr. Speaker, in a few short paragraphs, those are the main essentials of the bill. It obviously applies to a limited number of offenses. It applies to, it deletes, first of all, a particular paragraph that has a singular provision in relation to mask, because we are creating now a new mask offense. So we thought it neater to remove that wearing of a mask in that instance and to create the offense. And we have applied the offense, sir, we have applied the amendment to a series of sections in our Criminal Law Offences Act and the Summary Jurisdiction Act. Mr. Speaker, it first applies to 36A. Sorry, it first reads at 36A, any person who commits any offense under this part, and that part, Mr. Speaker, deals with titles 14, 12, 14, and 15, and parts 3 of part 3, or B of part 4. That is the offenses, the sections to which the offense applies. And it says, any person while wearing a mask or a disguise to conceal his or her identity while committing any of those offenses commits an offense, and in addition to the penalty provided for the specified offenses under paragraph A and B, shall also be liable to an additional fine of not less than $100,000 nor more than $500,000, or to imprisonment for not less than 1 year nor more than 5 years. And Mr. Speaker, the parts of the law to which this section applies include obviously the public order offenses, for example, treason and other similar offenses, including riotous conduct and terrorism. It includes robbery and extortion. It includes housebreaking and burglary. It includes offenses against public order and the administration of justice, include, as I said, riot and similar offenses. And it also applies, Mr. Speaker, to some offenses under the Summary Jurisdiction Act. So, Mr. Speaker, we are also increasing. There is one offense with a mask already existing under the Summary Jurisdiction Offences Act. And we are increasing the penalty for that offense by substituting the word 7,500 to no more than 15,000 or to imprisonment for 18 months with the words 50,000, no more than 750,000, or imprisonment for 3 years. So, Mr. Speaker, the use of a mask or any face covering apparel or apparatus once used in the commission of a certain category of violent offenses, including terrorism, including riotous conduct, robbery under arms, robbery with violence, break and enter, housebreaking, any of those offenses. You don't have a right to commit any of them, anyhow. And if you do so with a mask, and we have always had historically, quite apart from the recent spate of incidents to which I'm referring, we know historically in this country, we have what is called now colloquially and well established as part of our crime statistics, the kick down the door bandits. And the kick down the door bandits invariably wore masked. This amendment should have come decades ago, because that is a phenomenon that has been with us since the late 70s. I remember the first case that they said was a kick down the door bandits case was from Maikoni Creek. Remember that case, Mr. Speaker? Famous, yes. Famous case reported in the West Indian Report. Had some very colorful characters were charged. I remember one of them by the name of Twistmouth. He was one of the main. But I guess you couldn't see the twist in the mouth because he had on a mask. With this law now, if he doesn't wear a mask, we will see that it is Twistmouth. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a serious piece of amendment. I believe that it fills a major gap in our law. It addresses a serious concern for our law-abiding population, and the need for it demonstrably came to the fore quite recently, and we saw the damage and destruction that was done with people wearing masks while committing these offenses, and the difficulties that we encountered, that the law enforcement agencies encountered in arresting these persons because of these disguises. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Attorney General. Now for the Honorable Member, Ms. Amanza Walton Dizzy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, I was listening to the Honorable Attorney General when he was speaking in the previous debate. But anyway, I digress. Mr. Speaker, I rise to offer our support for the bill before us. I'm sure the Honorable Attorney General will be happy to hear that. And we appreciate the fact that certainly what this provision is doing is adding an aggravating element to an offense. And we on this side of the House have no difficulty with that. We are a party that is committed to law and order, and so we have no difficulty supporting the amendment. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to raise, as I have the floor, a matter that I'd raised in the form of a question without notice, because we cannot miss...
Honorable Member, you need to stick to this bill. I don't know I have before me any question without notice.
Mr. Speaker, could we agree that I'll be allowed to maybe at least complete my sentence so that you understand the point that I'm making before you interject? Could we agree?
No, we can't agree. Could you agree with me that you will start your comments pertaining to the bill before us?
Mr. Speaker, that is what I am doing, sir. We are here addressing the matter of the use of masks that offer an aggravating element to existing offenses. I am proceeding to say, sir, that I raised prior in this House the issue of the wearing of masks by private security forces. That is what I was going to say. I'm talking about masks. I was going to say as well that I had raised it to aid our memory. I had raised it in a question.
The preface was the issue of a question without notice that you sent to me. What you're raising is the issue of wearing of masks by private security companies that you raise in the House, right? I heard that during a presentation. You can continue along that line.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like I said, we support the amendment, but we are also going to make the point that we can't, on one hand, criminalize masked civilians who commit felonies, and on the other hand, turn a blind eye to groups of men with an unclear mandate, seemingly under the guise of legality, also roaming the streets wearing ski masks and balaclavas. That is the point that I am making. Mr. Speaker, I think the entire Guyana saw, and the Honorable Attorney General raised it, that in the incidents of unrest, you saw people who disguised themselves. Let me make sure that I quote him correctly. Wearing a covering to their faces to avoid social recognition. But they are not the only people doing it. And so, Mr. Speaker, I had asked, or I had attempted to ask, whether in the context of the Private Security Services Act, whether the wearing of ski masks, or balaclavas as they call them, had been approved by the approving authority for these security firms that are palavering around our country with big guns, with masks, to do exactly what the Attorney General said here, covering their faces to avoid social recognition. That is the point that I am trying to get across to us. And Mr. Speaker, this is not a partisan point. This is not a partisan point. The country saw on the West Bank a particular security firm rolling up to a crowd of protesters at Lenora with guns drawn and men hung and slung on the sides of vehicles, wearing masks. So what was their mandate there is the question. What was their mandate there? And I hope that the Minister with responsibility for Home Affairs can answer this question. Because, Mr. Speaker, how are these operations authorized? Who oversees them? And most importantly, who holds them accountable when they breach and violate the rights of Guyanese citizens? These are matters that are of importance to the people of Guyana. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to caution us that we must, in this House, at the earliest opportunity, review the legal framework for the operation of security personnel, because I fear what we are seeing happening here, sir, is this slow creep of a parallel security force. We saw footage with them instructing the police what to do and them firing in the air indiscriminately. This is footage that is publicly available. This is concerning to the people of Guyana. And so, Mr. Chair, we can't only pass laws that will affect poor people, children. We got to pass laws that hold the rich and those who believe that they're above the law accountable. And these security forces operate in this country with impunity. And we, Mr. Speaker, have a duty to pass laws. You know, I hear the Honorable Member Charles Ramson over there talking about scrape heads and talking about robbers. You know, what's the difference between these people and you? At least they wear a mask. You all rob and pillage the Guyanese people barefacedly. You have no business saying anything. No business saying anything. Mr. Speaker, I will maintain my point. I will maintain my point that you cannot simply pass laws that affect the poor in this country and take people off the streets and put them on $500,000 bail, but a young man that rapes an underage child is given off on $100,000 bail, released, and then uploads the video of the assault and gets bailed for that again. And you come to tell us in this house about stopping crime when they know that because they could call somebody, they will get off scot-free. So Charles, you're going to save your hypocrisy for somebody else, yes? Mr. Speaker, I want to, as I am on my feet, make some recommendations. And Mr. Speaker, I want to strongly recommend the revision and the reissuing of regulations to regulate these private security firms. And they must contain, Mr. Speaker, the prohibition of face coverings by private security personnel in public spaces. 2, they must require visible identification for all operatives. And 3, we must establish a public registry and oversight mechanism to investigate complaints and ensure compliance with human rights standards. If we are going to legislate, let us legislate. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Like I said, we support the amendments, but we will go a step further to say that we have to address this phenomenon of mass security personnel palavering and parading all around our country. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Now for the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Brinley Horatio Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this bill, the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, is a fairly simple resort to deal with the problem of persons using masks for the commission of a crime or with the intention of commission a crime. It's very simple. Very simple bill. I think the Honorable Attorney General, Anil Nanlal, explained its provisions, which are in the document. I am unhappy again that it appears as though the mere introduction of the bill, the proffering of the bill, introduces the opportunity to segue into other issues which are not necessarily related immediately to what this bill proposes, though there is some relationship, as was said. Unfortunately, the Honorable Member, Ms. Desir, wanted again in this House today to incite a brawl all by herself in relation to these fairly simple and clear issues that we need to discuss. Unfortunately, I don't have the gall nor the balls, and when I say balls, I'm speaking in cricket language. In cricket language, I don't bowl the bodyliners, the beamers, the short pitch deliveries and those things that Mr. Mahipal was delivering and delivers easily when he comes to make a presentation on anything, and as he did earlier today, when he was thereafter chastised by the Attorney General in relation to the issues which he purported were true in the Gobelian imitation that he made in this House. But it's fairly simple. We have had this bill. We have had, and we know that many of the recent crimes, the robbery on the arms, the home invasions, the kick up down the door bandits, which are a historical negative experience that we have had in crime activity, politically inspired too, over the years. And we are very concerned of the question of robbery on the arms, robbery of firearms, and the use of the firearms while masked. The bill does not suggest whether you are a member of a private security company and you're doing your job and you're hired to do something, that the mere wearing of the mask means you should be chastised, it should be. There may be reasons why they may want to mask themselves. The policemen who were being bricked and thrown stuff at Linden, some of them did have masks. Some might have been undercover policemen who came to assist. They suffered a lot. Some of them had their shields stolen. Some of them had facial injuries as a result of bricks and bottles and other stuff thrown at them. So it is not the mere wearing of a mask. Whether it's a ski mask, a hoodie, a balaclava, or whatever you want, or a scarf to hide your face. If you are intent on committing a crime, if you're involved in terroristic activities, blocking up the roads, beating people and so on, and you're using a mask, or a means of hiding your face and the rest of it, that is simply what it means. You are committing a crime, and this bill lays out the resorts in law now for a response to this type of activity. And so the segue is unfortunate that the honorable member made. I think the bill speaks for itself. It was presented clearly by the Attorney General, and somehow still, in spite of maligning the issues of the security companies, and she can bring any revisions, any suggestions, any bill that she comes. If she's here on the next occasion, you can bring anything, or she could get somebody to bring something. That's good if she makes it. That's good. We will see. We will be here and now support the bill. I hope that they clearly support the bill on the other side, those who may speak after me without any reservation. And I, too, myself, sir, support this bill without any reservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Dattadin.
God bless.
Honorable Member, Mr. Dattadin. Honorable Member, Mr. Dattadin.
You would do well to learn about the 5 months. Mr. Speaker, our Constitution provides that every government is entitled to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the country. In the past 5 years, President Ali and his administration have tackled issues which require legislative intervention with a complete totality in what it is faced with. It was a remarkable agenda dealing with a variety of issues. Mr. Speaker, on some occasions, we need to introduce laws that are required to provide a legislative framework for actions and activities which we wish to introduce. One such example would be the Local Content Act. On other occasions, existing legislation, which was ineffective and needs to be made effective, was corrected to make them transparent and workable. One such example is the National Resource Fund, the Natural Resource Fund. Mr. Speaker, the legislative agenda over the past 5 years have covered everything and every area of governance. Natural resources and energy, the Natural Resources Fund, the Local Content Act, the updating and replacing of the Petroleum Exploration Act with the Petroleum Activities Act. Digital governance has been introduced with data protection, the Open Data Act, Data Protection Act, and the Digital Identity Card Act. Criminal justice reform has been addressed with the Criminal Justice Procedure Act, which deals with plea bargainings, the Criminal Justice Procedure Act 2024, which deals with paper committals, and of course the Fugitive Offenders Amendment Act. Constitutional Reform Commission Act, Constitutional Reform and Defense Act have all been part of what has been introduced. Environmental and social legislation have been covered with tax incentives for electric vehicles, and of course we've had the acquisition of land for public purposes so that our development can continue. But there are occasions, Mr. Speaker, when all that is required and all that is needed is to introduce small changes to existing legislation to meet the needs of society. Mr. Speaker, this is one such amendment. It deals with wearing a mask during the commission of a crime. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are various theories about this, and much has been written jurisprudentially across the Commonwealth about it. One theory is the world became a different place with COVID-19, and the wearing of masks became commonplace. It was no longer frowned upon by citizens when persons wore masks. This, of course, has led to, and it was taken advantage of, by persons who wished to use it to conceal their identity while they were engaged in criminal activity. The amendment on this that is proposed, Your Honor, is simple. Wearing a mask is now, by legislation, an aggravating factor, and any person who commits an offense while wearing a mask to conceal or to disguise his or her identity commits an offense. And in addition to the penalty which is already provided, there is an increased penalty that there is a larger fine of $100,000 to $500,000, and there is a larger period of imprisonment, which it attracts of not less than 1 year and more than 5 years. Your Honor, it is shocking, the inability of the members of the opposition to take simple language in legislation and twist it into things it was not. The farcical comparison that we heard earlier as it relates to security forces wearing masks and the actions of what they're doing. Mr. Speaker, it is simple. Anyone who is wearing a mask and breaks the law will be subject to an aggravating factor, whether they're the member of a private security firm or not. This is uncomplicated, and the simple language of the legislation lends itself well to this. It should not be rocket science that persons who are in any way breaking a law, whether it's a public order offense or not, that if they're wearing a mask, then they will be subject to a higher penalty. It is entirely odious to mention things that are not criminal and persons not engaged in criminal activity, and to consider whether they should be allowed to wear a mask or not. It is entirely irrelevant to the criminal law in any facet if one were to wear a mask. It is only if the engagement is such that it offends the Criminal Law Act or criminal activities that wearing a mask becomes a problem. With those few words, Mr. Speaker, I fully support Bill number 8 of 2025, Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Mr. Datadin. Honorable Member, Mr. Ranjithan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is with wholehearted support that I make my short address on a matter that, quite frankly, must be supported. It's hard not to support a bill of this nature, especially in the context of egregiously high levels of crime where the identities of aggressors are being hidden through the use of masks and other methods to disguise their identity. And to the extent then that that is what this is directed to, and being a student of the criminal aggravating circumstances ought to, in a legislature of this nature, ought to be made punishable rather by the creation of, either by the creation of offenses or the increasing of penalties for those. And that is what I see as the basis for the Attorney General bringing this bill. Like in the development of the common law, its criminal side, aggravating circumstances has always been provided for, especially through penalties. The nature of the offense of burglary, break in and enter a house daytime, is a little different than nighttime. And that is why burglary, in a sense, was made with higher penalties, because of the fact that coming into a person's house in the night makes it all the more insecure and psychologically affecting the occupants and so on. And that is also why, as the law evolved, we had what is called being in possession of weapons whilst committing assaults can be an aggravating circumstance. Similarly here, because of the nature of the situation evolving and people wanting to hide their identity in broad daylight by these disguises, balaclavas and masks, indeed, it should be supported. But I want to make a point, Mr. Speaker, and that is an extraordinarily legitimate critique was made by my sister Amansa Wanton-Desir. Because when we were to take the origins of why this bill came now, it is largely to do with the riotous conduct of people recently, obviously. And in the context of those riotous conduct and people hiding their identity, or also, as she mentioned, people who are coming from security forces, not necessarily the public forces, although there might very well be some of them like that there, but the private security services members who are also with masks. And I've seen that during the course of the social media that I watched and so on in the recent spats that we had. And it is a compelling point that she addressed to the extent that why not go a little further and at least seek some prohibition from members of security force, private security force. But what we had rather was something saying that it is totally out of order. It is not out of order. It is a valid point. And we must not, because of the fact that we are asked here to give unreserved support for certain pieces of legislation, that the opposition should be prevented from making its point on a very serious issue. Why is it that private security forces got to wear masks and with some big heavy AK-47s and so on? How do we identify them? Sometimes they don't even wear the uniform of those private security firms. And so it is important that for the transparency of it all, we simply do not come here to support a half measure when the full measure could be that, yes, it would have been important to also make a prohibition in relation to that. And so this is what sometimes the opposition gets annoyed about. I was here when the local content bill, a whole lot of recommendations for amendments were made by Mr. David Patterson. Not a single one was supported. And we had speeches here that we do not support what the government brings. Well, let me tell the Attorney General, honorable member as he is, that almost every single amendment in relation to those electoral laws we supported. But he gave the impression to the members of the public that he was ranting and raving about, that we did not. Please, you did exactly rant and rave. And then you also give an inexactitude that you never support any of those. Everything, I stood up there. And at some point, I said we support it. Maybe you better check the record. Because we too here want electoral laws amendments. Yes. So do not try to bring what is called a chilling effect on opposition remarks as to what and what they should speak on when the valid, legitimate point is being made in relation to a matter that is very much ancillary to what we are trying to get at here, the real criminals. But the security force or the private security force ought to be also prohibited from wearing those masks. Mr. Speaker, I thought I should mention that because it's an important point. Because as we evolve, as we do legislation, a lot of other unforeseen circumstances will come that we will have to be prepared for. And it is in a context like that. There it is on the road. Criminals and aggressors who want to behave righteously, yes, we must condemn them. But then you got private security forces backing up policemen. The police are in their uniform, they get a number, generally could identify them, but you can't identify the private security people. And they go with guns bigger and more plentiful than the police. I thought that it was inappropriate and very much not with the quality that a government is going to take a very commendable comment and critique and treat it as it just did. But in any event, Mr. Speaker, I want to fully support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Attorney General. Sir, you were called not on the telephone, but in the house.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to bring the debate on this bill to a pleasant closure. And I want to begin by commending first my colleagues on that side. I don't get the opportunity to do so. Very wide and far, a moment of great rarity that I want to commend them for having the vision to see the benefits and the crucial importance of these amendments. I also want to thank my colleagues on this side of the House who spoke and lent their solid support to the bill. Mr. Speaker, the point made about private security firms wearing masks is one that the bill provides for. First of all, I emphasized in my presentation that the bill does not renders the wearing of masks or any form of facial disguise criminal or criminally aggravating ab initio. In other words, you can wear your masks, you can wear your facial expression, facial apparel, you can wear your disguises. And the same way that you can do that, members of a private security firm can do that. What the bill outlaws is having worn that masks or having worn that facial disguise or that facial face covering apparel, you then proceed to commit a criminal offense of the type contemplated by the legislation. Then you commit an offense. Applying that principle to the facts of a private security firm, if any of those members wear a mask or a facial covering, nothing is wrong with it. Just as if I do it, just as if the Honorable Member Ramjatan does it. However, if I or the Honorable Member Ramjatan proceeds to commit one of the identified offenses while wearing that mask, the provision kicks in. Similarly, if one member of the private security firm, while wearing the mask, commits one of those offenses, the law kicks in. So it is very, very clear. And therefore, the contention advanced is one that is misplaced. It is misplaced. So, Mr. Ramjatan, I have to part company with you. Your learned colleague on that side completely misread the bill and spoke of an irrelevance. An irrelevance, because you could have included any category of persons. You could have said members of the fishing folk community. You could have said members of the vendors committee if they wear a mask and raise the same concern. It is not the wearing of the mask. It's wearing of the mask to commit the offense. That is the wrong that is being prohibited and punished here. So we are legislators, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we have to speak with precision. We have to speak succinctly, and we have to speak to the mischief that the law tries to suppress, and not misinterpret it to cater for a situation that it doesn't contemplate and proffer that as a criticism that is somehow valid. It is not. So I want to reject my colleague's contention out of hand. It is not well placed, it is not well positioned, and it is not what the bill deals with. And the bill, if any member of any security force misuse their powers, they misuse their powers, well, then the law will apply to them. And that's the whole purpose of the amendment. It will apply to them. It will apply to them. There's no caveat. There is no restriction of liability or culpability in relation to them. So the bill addresses your concerns. The bill addresses your concerns. So, Mr. Speaker, I take great pride in concluding this debate on the ground, on the high note, that the amendments that we are debating have received the unanimous support of the House, and I ask, Mr. Speaker, that we move to the second reading of the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, AG. Honorable members, the question is that the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, Bill number 8 of 2025, be read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Let the bill be read a second time.
Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, Bill number 8 of 2025.
Honorable members, we will now resolve ourselves into committee to consider the clauses of the bill. Members, we are in committee. The bill has two clauses and a schedule, and I propose the question that clauses 1 and 2 and the schedule now form part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The clauses and the schedule now form part of the bill. I now put the question that the bill be reported to committee. Those in favor say aye. Sorry, to the House. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Let the House resume. Honorable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to report that the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, Bill number 8 of 2025, was considered in committee clause by clause and was passed without amendments. I move that the bill be now read the third time and passed as printed.
Honorable members, the question is that the Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, Bill number 8 of 2025, be read the third time and pass as printed. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Let the bill be read a third time.
Criminal Law Miscellaneous Bill 2025, Bill number 8 of 2025.
Honorable members, I saw there was some understanding between the two whips. We have 4 more bills to proceed with. Let's take a half an hour break and return.